Peace, good morning. I'd like to welcome you back into another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I'm your foul player. I wanted to make this short video regarding the comparisons between Errol Spence fighting or Dennis Ugas, and why some of the fans are not critical of Errol Spence unifying, quote unquote, with or Dennis Ugas, who was pretty much gifted a belt. But a lot of the same fans were really contrite when Anthony Joshua fought Joseph Parker to try to gain his third belt too. So I'll get right into it. Many moons ago, 5 years ago maybe, there were three heavyweights that were, in my eyes, were like the next crop, and it was Wilder, Anthony Joshua, and Joseph Parker. Believe it or not, a lot of people thought that Joseph Parker, of those three, may have had the best shot at rising to prominence. Believe it or not, because he was the most technical guy. Some people thought, but Wilder was almost outside of that group, if you will, because at that time, the same people that represent Wilder now, just came off of representing Seth Mitchell, and kind of pumping a little bit more gas into him, right before Wilder. So I mean, a lot of people didn't know about Wilder as much. So Wilder, by way of knocking people out left and right, kind of rose from the nothing to even surpass Joseph Parker. When Joseph Parker was gonna fight Anthony, a lot of people were demanding that Wilder should be the guy to fight Anthony, because Wilder was way more popular, and Wilder gained popularity not only really quick, but again, he was considered outside of that group, in a sense, or the lowest one in that group. But when Anthony Joshua ended up announcing the fight with Joseph Parker, that was a big fight. I mean, a lot of people may not think so, but that fight did better pay-per-view numbers, if I remember correctly, than when he fought Klitschko, even, because he went right from Klitschko, if I remember correctly, to fighting Parker. But still, there were a lot of people that were pissed off, including me. I thought that why not? I mean, being that Anthony Joshua had sort of mentioned Wilder's name, or his promoter ended up mentioning Wilder's name, and the fact that it was a bigger fight, a lot, and it was also a championship fight. A lot of people wanted that fight first, and it was a big deal, but Wilder ended up fighting him. He ended up fighting Povetkin. He ended up fighting that African cat. I forgot his name. And a lot of people were really pissed off in the process. But particularly, and I just want to cover maybe Povetkin and Parker, or whoever Wilder fought after Parker. You could insert Povetkin in there, or the African cat whose name I'm forgetting right now. But, and it might be in reverse order, but when Wilder fought the African cat and or Povetkin, neither one of those were championship fights. A lot of the UK fans were dick riding that fight, because a lot of the AJ fans that are really casuals are just dick riders. So it was hard to talk real boxing with a lot of people that were more insistent on pulling somebody's dick. It's hard to talk to fans that you have your guy and they have their guy, but they're real smug about their guy because of some ancillary component that's attributed to their guy, whether it be ticket sales or the fact that they sell stadiums, like, you know, like, and you were getting a lot of that with the Anthony Joshua fans, and it was annoying. So I mean, like, you know, and I want to, and just so people like are clear too, these fights don't happen like, you know, from one day to the next, and a fight gets consummated. So like when a fight gets talked about, you know, there's a 6-month period from a fight being like a rumor until it materializes. So this didn't happen like, you know, where people were bitching for like 2 weeks when Anthony Joshua was rumored, announced, consummated a fight with Joseph Parker. Like that was like a point of contention for a while, for a few months. One made by me as well. Like I was pissed off when Joshua fought Wilder. But the reason I was pissed off, and most other people were pissed off, is because that wasn't the fight to make. Like nobody really was demanding a Joseph Parker fight with Anthony Joshua, unless they wanted Joshua to gain one more trinket. Sounds familiar? Or one more point of contention against Wilder by gaining one more belt. Also sound familiar. And and I'll compare that to the Errol Spence situation with him fighting Ugas, so he can seemingly get a upper hand on negotiating. I mean, it doesn't seem like unifying the division is the main point of emphasis with the PBC camp or Errol Spence, because if that was the case, they would have got those fights done. Somebody would have already had 3 belts 2 years ago, you know. But that fight is not, you know, Errol Spence's principal intention to fight Ugas is not because he's gung-ho about unifying the division, because that belt was essentially like floating in the nether for quite some time. A lot of these belts were, so there was a chance to acquire one of them with Bud Crawford for a while, and no mention was ever made of that fight. But also too, I mean, like with the Ugas Joseph Parker comparison, the fight against Ugas, it's not gonna do more than 150 pay-per-views. If you think that, go ahead and think that. I still contend, unless somebody shows me actual proof, not some Coppinger article, show me actual numbers where Errol Spence sold over 300K pay-per-views against Danny Garcia, and I'll give you $1,000. Me. Like, pull up the numbers from whomever, and you could throw whatever mode of PlayStation sales or theater ticket sales. He ain't do 300,000, guaranteed. But, and it's because it was a whack fight. But what do you think Ugas fighting Errol Spence is gonna be? How are they gonna sell that fight? Like, Ugas doesn't speak English. Never had they had a easy time selling a Cuban fighter in the last like 30 years or something. Since I've been watching boxing, that's never been the biggest chance at, or the biggest Cuban fighter of the last like 30 years or 20 years at least was homeboy who Bud Crawford beat. Forget his name offhand. But besides that, there wasn't no. It's hard to market Cuban guys. Not dissing Cubans. I mean, you know, they're bros too. But it's just the case. It's just the facts. Like, and the thing is too, whether you don't take that argument serious or not, Ugas is still not a sellable fighter because he's lost like 4 times already. And like he has no character. What has he done? You don't know what he looks like, bro. Stop fronting. You gotta Google his face to see what he looks like. But that fight is of no consequence besides gaining another belt. And it's no money because that fight is gonna do sub 150 pay-per-views. So if you bitched about Joseph Parker, which was probably Anthony Joshua's biggest pay-per-view to date, because if I remember correctly, Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker did more pay-per-view numbers than Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko. You know, I think if I remember correctly, and this was a reported number because I don't check the numbers that Eddie Hearn and the UK pumps out seriously either. Like Sky reports those numbers, and Sky's the one selling it, and Eddie Hearn has Sky by the balls. But reportedly, that fight sold a 1.3 pay-per-view. It might have sold more than that, supposedly. But so I could see a reason to fight that fight, and not just the money factor, but the fact that it was a championship belt, the fact that at one point Joseph Parker was within that realm. Ugas was never in the realm of like welterweights to be considered seriously, besides like after taking Sean Porter into a life and death matchup. That was a few years ago. Stop fronting. Like, you know, like Ugas is not that guy, but you guys are like really gung-ho about making an Ugas fight. Nobody ever wants to see an Ugas fight. If Ugas was headlining a fight, you wouldn't watch it, bro. You wouldn't stop your Friday night. You wouldn't stop your Saturday afternoon when you're not doing anything to watch a Ugas fight. So stop lying. You know, you wouldn't like you wouldn't if it was between watching the Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars playing Sunday night versus watching Ugas fight on his own, where he's the A side of a match, you're gonna watch Bengals versus Jaguars. At least that may have a draft pick ramification to it. Ugas is like pretty much essentially a nobody, maybe top 10 welterweight. But, you know, a lot of these people want to flaunt, like, you know, like these thousandaire fights that Errol Spence is selling us, and the PBC selling us. And like, this is not like throwing rose petals at Joshua. Joshua's a lame, you know. But come to think of it, I mean, like, you know, if you think about what's available to Joshua and what's available to Errol Spence, Joshua's fought like 1,000 times better people than Errol Spence. Like, he's not even in the same league, and he's like made a ton more money. Not that it means anything, like, I mean, like, or not that I'm gonna be dick riding that, but you know, a lot of people like try to flaunt like something that Errol Spence has that's not even there. He's not making loot like that, bro. Like, you know, it ain't about the bread either, but he has no potential to make big money besides Terrence Crawford. And even a Manny Pacquiao fight is not a big money. It's not a humongous money fight like that. Like, Manny Pacquiao is for all intents and purposes, a semi-retired fighter. If you beat Manny Pacquiao, whoever you are, people are gonna say, "Oh, well, he's old." You know, like, I don't care if Bud Crawford does it. I don't care if Errol Spence does it. You know, that's no feather onto their cap. Besides, like, being a big money fight. Like, and a big money fight means like 450,000 pay-per-view sales on a good day. But why not take the fight that's gonna sell you 800,000 pay-per-views, maybe more, with Bud Crawford, and get the shit over with? Then after that, you know, whoever wins that fight is the man. Whoever wins that fight, then go fight Manny Pacquiao, and you'll probably do 700,000, maybe, I don't know. You're still like, I mean, like, whatever you know, you're not gonna be the B side to Pacquiao. And believe me, like, whoever of those two is fighting Pacquiao, they're gonna be stuck on B side. You think fighting Ugas like is gonna gain Errol Spence A side or B? I mean, or is gonna gain Errol Spence A side against Pacquiao? If it does, I mean, it won't be by much. It'll be a 50-50 fight, and that's a big maybe, and that's not like a point of accomplishment. That's being the best. That's being the best hula hoop player, or that's being the best beach volleyball like server or something. Nobody cares. So stop trying to pump up Errol Spence into something he's not. It's a regular ass dude right now. A regular guy with regular accomplishments. If you want to say you won championships, everybody he's beat has been beat before. Period. Everybody he's beat can't sell shit. Kell Brook, the chasing like an Amir Khan fight, and he has a UK market like at least, but he's been beat. That's Errol Spence's biggest accomplishment is beating Kell Brook. It's been downhill since then, and that was a while ago. We're approaching on probably more than half a decade like since he fought Kell Brook, and it wasn't like people know Kell Brook on this side of the pond. Kell Brook is not a big name. I was adamantly opposed to Bud Crawford fighting Kell Brook. It was a nothing fight. But this whole division is a big nothing. I mean, like, basically what it is. Like, it's two guys at the top that show no commitment to fighting each other. And one rabid fan base, because Bud Crawford doesn't have a rabid fan base. Bud Crawford has a lot of people that are disgusted by Errol Spence in his corner. They don't have well, Bud's that guy. I mean, or he don't have that many of those that think Bud's this big seller or whatever have you. I mean, do I think that Bud Crawford is the pound for pound best fighter? Yes. Does a lot of the boxing media pump up the fact that Bud Crawford is the top 10 is a pound for pound number one fighter? Yes. But that doesn't equate for shit on the business sense for Bud Crawford. I don't think Errol Spence is big in the business sense, and neither do I think that Bud Crawford is big in the business sense. Spence, in spite of the fact that the boxing media may pump him as being the number one pound for pound, but when you have a split fan base or a splitting of one fan base with two fighters, and both of them dissing each other's fighter, then I mean, other fan bases that have their own fighters, see Canelo and Pacquiao, they're gonna join the fray and diss both the fighters too. So I mean, you're dealing. The point of emphasis shouldn't be whether Errol Spence get a bigger piece of the pie. I mean, if you want to say that Bud should make the concession and take 60-40, you could also make the argument that Errol Spence could take 50-50. What's so wrong? What's so hard about that? Well, he's not stupid. He's not going to leave money on the table. Well, he might be leaving money on the table. There's not much money anyway. The fight's not that big. The fight's not going to get that much bigger either. The only way that fight get big is if they fight 3 times. But part 1 of that fight, not a humongous fight. Stop fronting. Let me know what you guys think, man. I mean, if you agree, disagree, whatever, I don't care. But don't hit me up in messages and shit. I'm not a big channel like that. Trying to slyly change my mind. I don't got no beef or a long-term problem with you doing that. But I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna continue to make videos about Errol Spence until Errol Spence says, I want that Bud Crawford fight next, no matter what. Let's just make it happen. I'm not offering no splits in the media. Do your shit behind the scenes and talk about that fight at all turns, or little old me is just gonna keep pumping out videos dissing little old you. Well, with that, I'm out. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.